obesity is the mother of all modern non-communicable disease. While BMI continues to be used all the time and is an important clinical parameter, it's completely different for Indians. Weight loss is attractive for public. That's why we call them weight loss. They're not weight loss drugs. Actually, they are doing amazing things. First time, we have drugs that can cause or that can result in 15% or more weight loss.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to this amazing session put together by Edge. Edge is a community of innovators, entrepreneurs, and people who are excited about new ideas. And as part of this, we have a series which brings the world experts in various fields. And today it is my honor and privilege to host one of the leading voice in the world of diabetes, in the world of endocrine science across the world. Somebody who has been awarded the Padma Bhushan. He's received the Dr. B.C. Roy Award, and his expertise spans across osteoporosis, vitamin D deficiency, metabolic syndromes, diabetes, and thyroid. It is my honor and privilege to once again welcome Dr. Ambrish Mithal to the Edge event. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vishal. Happy to be
So,
here.
yeah, so Dr. Mittal is absolutely working on the cutting edge of science when it comes to endocrinology or diabetology. Currently, he is the group chairman and head of endocrinology and diabetes at Max Healthcare with over 5 decades of experience. He has significantly influenced clinical protocols and public health policy. Particularly, he is a big advocate of vitamin D fortification. We all know how that is one of the big problems as we are all being more indoors. Recently, he's just launched a new book called The Weight Loss Revolution, talking about scientific and a very empathetic approach to deal with obesity, and especially in this era of modern weight loss drugs. And we are going to talk about GLP-1s today, especially in the Indian context. He leads clinical strategy, public health integration at Max, advises international associations, the government. He's part of everything which is there from a health perspective. He's published several research papers, and he's one of the most sought out speakers and media voice in the world when it comes to the world of diabetes and overall chronic condition management. So, without further ado, welcome once again to this amazing talk, Dr. Mittal. We would love to hear your views on GLP-1 and what is happening in the whole world of weight loss and diabetes care.
Well, thank you, Vishal, for the very super kind introduction. And I'm happy to be here and share some thoughts about what everyone's talking about these days. And that is about new drugs that help us lose weight. So I have a few minutes to just express, some kind of outline of my thoughts about in this area. So basically, we first have to understand what we mean by obesity. One problem is that people think of obesity as someone who looks fat, right? So while that is, of course, true to some extent, but the fact is that in 1997, WHO classified obesity as a disease. Now, which means that it's not just the precursor for diabetes, for blood pressure, for heart disease, for fatty liver, even some kinds of cancer, for osteoarthritis, but it is important enough to be labeled a disease on its own. Now, I'll throw in a one line here that my one line here, and that is I'm not necessarily in agreement with calling it a disease. And the reason is, on the one hand, we are not even using the word diabetic because it constitutes a stigma. We say a person with diabetes, individual with diabetes, and then we want to label half the world as diseased because of obesity, and we are fighting the obesity stigma. So I would, technically, yes, it's a disease, no question, but I like to think of it as a condition, and I train my team to think of it as a condition, not to think of it as a disease, because then you're looking at everyone as diseased. That's another problem, medicalization of people who are not really that sick or anything. So I think that is an important part. Why was obesity considered a disease? Because whenever we have excess body fat, regardless of the cause, excess body fat, that equals disease. There is a problem. What do we mean by that? Classically, obesity has been measured, for example, by using the body mass index. The body mass index is a ratio that looks into weight and height, right? Now, and we must have heard BMI everywhere, and BMI means classically, again, in the Western context, above 25 is overweight, above 30 is obese, right? So overweight and then obese. So the fundamental problem starts here. While BMI continues to be used all the time and is an important clinical parameter, it's completely different for Indians. And the reason is that if you use BMI, then actually at 23 BMI, we start getting the adverse metabolic impact of obesity. So our risks don't start increasing at 25, they start increasing at a BMI of 23, a lower body weight. Why would that happen? That happens because all fat is not the same. And that's what we have to understand about obesity. It's not just what we see. All fat is not the same. There is fat around our tummy, especially that around our viscera, around our organs, liver and heart and all, which actually is much worse than fat we have on our upper arms or thighs or buttocks. Right. So there are many kinds of fat. And why is this fat different? After all, fat is fat. But fat is composed of cells called adipocytes, doesn't matter, cells. And the cells that constitute the abdominal fat or the visceral fat are actually far more active and dangerous than the cells that we have other parts of our body, which means that they secrete certain toxins, you can call them chemokines, the cytokines, which cause inflammation across the body. The buzzword here is inflammation. So, inflammation in the heart, inflammation in the liver, all kinds of things. Now, if that proportion is much higher in you, even though you look all right with your BMI, you are in some sense metabolically obese. Okay, so we use a acronym called TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. Okay, so Indians have this predisposition to develop, South Asians, not just Indians, have this predisposition to develop or accumulate fat around their viscera. Right now, this is one problem. So when we think, oh, obesity, when we were students, obesity is an American problem. It doesn't happen in India. Of course, there was much less obesity in India that time. But now we know that the curve of obesity in India has rapidly increased. And if you count abdominal obesity alone as obesity, then it is very, very high. Almost 40%, 45% Indians might be overweight or abdominally obese. So that is huge. I mean, look at our population. So this is important to understand, that when we are talking of obesity, we are talking of the bad fat, and we're talking of the fat that's inside, which we don't really see. Well, the abdominal fat gives a very good idea of that. So, deep abdominal fat is also pretty dangerous or toxic. Now, what does this mean? This means that BMI alone is not a very sensitive criterion. One way is to do a waist circumference, just a waist circumference. Now, again, if you go technically by just a waist circumference, 80 centimeters for women and 90 for men is the upper cutoff. Now, if all of you measure, it's a real challenge for typical Indians to remain below that. But that's how it is. In an ideal world, yes. Now, I'm not saying you should all be chasing that all the time. I don't believe one should become obsessive, but we should be aware that this is where it is. People have used other things, a waist hip ratio. They've also used a waist height ratio, which is becoming very popular now. So all these things are ways to measure fat, or to classify or label someone as obese. And then there is also a simple technique called body composition analyzers. You see them in the gyms and other some hospitals all the time. Just stand on that in a couple of minutes, you get your whole body analysis. It is not 100% accurate, but it's good enough for us to manage clinically. If you want to do better techniques for that, then you've heard of bone density machines called DEXA machines. You would have heard of bone density machines in your health checks and all. They also do a very good job of fat measurement. So they are more accurate. And there are more accurate methods, but clinically, these are the two relevant ones. At the moment, body composition by bioimpedance, that machine where you stand on, is good enough for practical purposes. So, first thing is to understand that obesity propels us towards a lot of conditions because of the bad fat. And the first and most important in that is diabetes. Certainly, even high blood pressure is linked to it. These days, very important is fatty liver, metabolic associated fatty liver disease, really a big problem. Heart disease. I mean, heart disease is, these all lead towards something that can be, well, fatal. And then you talk of heart disease, right? Really dangerous. But it's more than that. We also know there are so many connections between obesity and depression. We have these images of healthy Laurel and Hardy. I grew up with Laurel and Hardy, but actually, fat people are typically not very happy, and most of the time, they seem to be happy, and they're covering up. Depression is far more common than in those who are not fat, not obese. So I think those are important areas. Then there are impact on the joints, impact on the gallbladder, and impact on cognitive function also, impact on certain kinds of cancers. So it sounds terrible, but that's the truth. It's not that everyone's going to get everything, but the fact is that obesity is the mother of all modern non communicable disease. And not just that, even when it comes to things like COVID, we all remember all our discussions on TV all the time. People with obesity have poorer outcomes, even from infectious disease. So, this is not to scare you about obesity. All of us are a little bit overweight and we have fat in the wrong places, but awareness is important. Awareness is important. Now, the challenge with obesity has been for people like me, like endocrinologists like me. I joined endocrinology residency in 1984. So 41 years, and MBBS 10 years before that. So what I'm saying is that we have been struggling with obesity. Obesity falls in the domain of the endocrinologist. Now, what do? We say diet, we say exercise, we say diet, we say exercise, and the same thing the nutritionists tell you, same thing the health centers tell you, same thing the slimming centers tell you, a little bit different here and there, some fat diet, some. Now, and then we say, oh, no, no, you're severely obese, now you need to go for surgery. And there's a big gap in between. We had no tools like we have so many tools with diabetes. Let's say if insulin you regard as sort of the well in more advanced diabetes, and you think of diet and lifestyle as a starter, you have a whole bunch of medication in between to help you through that phase. But we didn't have anything in the past. So it has been the most frustrating disease to really manage all this while. And without us, and the frustration of our patients rubs off on us because we really don't have much to offer other than motivation, counseling, that's all, and diet and exercise, which remain the mainstay. I mean, no one can take away the importance of diet and exercise, but I'm just saying that's how it is. So, why the excitement now, and why have I called it the weight loss revolution? And this is a book you will find where I have penned down all my thoughts. So much more than what we'll be able to discuss is listed here, and this came out just a couple of weeks ago. So, the importance is that first time we have drugs that can cause or that can result in 15% or more weight loss. which means if you say an overweight person, fat person, 100 kilograms, then if you lose 15%, you lose 15 kilograms. So far, no drug had cracked that code. So the second part of my introductory talk will be on how did this come about? What is this whole theory? And how come these drugs have suddenly, cracked that code? So there's a hormone called GLP-1. Forget the full name, acronym is enough. GLP-1 abbreviation. And it is secreted from our gut. When we eat something, it comes out of the intestine, goes to the pancreas, promotes insulin secretion, so stimulates insulin. So you ate something, the sugar went up naturally. In a non-diabetic also, it goes to the pancreas, pushes the insulin, metabolizes the sugar, sugar enters the cell. Everything is good. That's GLP-1. It's doing that all the time in small amounts. That's been known for a few decades. What was more recently understood is that it also slows the emptying of the stomach. So the movement of our stomach is slowed by this hormone. And most interestingly, it goes to our brain and actually tells us when to stop eating. I mean, how do we know that we are full? So, and that is because of the GLP-1 hormone. And it's a critical hormone for us. It's a very, very important hormone in physiology. And there are others, GIP and glucagon, but we'll stick to GLP-1. Won't make it complicated. GLP-1 is the center point. Now, with what happened was that people realized that when you inject GLP-1, people suddenly can't eat. Their appetite goes down, or they start feeling full sooner. So why not just inject native GLP-1? The problem is that it breaks down in the blood in 2-3 minutes. So you inject it and it goes. So either you have to give it by infusion, a constant intravenous infusion, or something like that. So obviously that is all. So that's theoretical and interesting. This drug, this class of drugs, first developed from the saliva of a lizard, a giant lizard in the US. We have been using since 2005. So the first thing is GLP-1 drugs are not new. They have been around since 2005 as very valuable tools to treat diabetes. So we need to get this, understanding that, oh, they're absolutely new. No one knows. All my colleagues have been using these drugs for 20 years. They are very good drugs for diabetes. They don't produce low blood sugar. They also have been shown, even earlier drugs have been shown to reduce risk of heart attack, etc. But the excitement happened because they kept modifying these drugs to promote weight loss. And as a result, what happened was that they cracked that code somewhere in the middle of the last decade, and semaglutide emerged. So with molecular chemistry, you can really play with these things now. It's incredible how science has progressed in this field. As an example, and suddenly you found that you can have 15% weight loss with good diabetes control 15%, and that's why they made the news. But barely had this made the news that further news happened. So you have hormones that a single molecule, a single drug, acting through two pathways, GLP and GIP. Don't get mixed up, two hormone pathways, okay? And that is tirzepatide, or what you call as Mounjaro. And the first one, which I talked about, semaglutide, is Ozempic or Wegovy, right? So this is how it's happened. Now, these drugs, that's why I have created a new dimension. Now, if we realize that obesity is all that it is, I mean, all the stuff that we spoke about, and there's much more. As I said, you can read, if you want to. Basically, if you're looking at it like that, then by lowering body fat, you can affect many things. Many things. It's not just weight loss. Weight loss is attractive for public. That's why we call them weight loss. They're not weight loss drugs. Actually, they're doing amazing things. They're reducing your risk of heart disease. They're reducing your risk of kidney disease progression, reducing your risk of fatty liver, all those things. So there are multiple things happening. There are side effects to every drug, and I'm sure we'll discuss that. There's no drug. So if anyone tells you, that just take it. I have all of my patients have friends in America or relatives who tell them, oh yeah, I just use it. Everyone's using it here. or even in London. No, just use them. There's no problem. Why is the doctor hesitating? Why is he asking for tests? So that is a challenge we'll talk about. But they are drugs. They are not candy. So it's important to understand that. And I think the most exciting part for me as an endocrinologist, someone in this area of work and research, is that this is just the beginning. They have cracked this code and they're only going to get better. You will have amazing drugs, and we'll talk about them, Vishal. When you, if you ask me, what is the future like? Future is sensational. I mean, I think this is a GLP-1 decade. I normally don't make such strong statements, but I really think, unless, fingers crossed, some esoteric side effect emerges, which is unknown to us, and which you can never rule out. But that's true for every drug. If that doesn't happen, which the possibility of that is very, very low, because as I said, 20 years we've been using this class of drugs, then we are on to something really big. And they will change not just endocrine management, but medical management in every sphere.
What an amazing introduction. I think you have demystified this topic for a lot of people. So, GLP-1 is naturally generated in our body. And what I understand these drugs are really doing is artificially giving you a boost, which causes lower appetite, your brain thinking that it is full, and creates all the magical effects with it. So while this drug is really incredible and has done amazing outcomes, one of the question which is very common, and we'll be going through this, is who is the right candidate? Because a lot of people are confused at what stage, how much overweight should I really be to even consider this? Because right now, anybody from who's trying to lose 5 kgs to
50.
50 kgs are all trying to use this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the excitement, I think it'll sort of stabilize in some time as people understand more. Uh, so I think the no brainer here is overweight people with type 2 diabetes. Overweight people with type 2 diabetes are ideal candidates for this. They are people who actually originally these drugs were developed for. So it'll improve your blood glucose, it'll reduce your weight, it'll reduce the risk of cardiac and kidney complications and liver complications. So it's a no-brainer.
And
Overweight
you say type 2, are you, what HbA1c, what level of HbA1c should be the cutoff?
So there is no A1C cutoff for this. I mean, for diagnosing diabetes, 6.5, as you know, but even pre-diabetics are at risk for various things. So that is, so HbA1c, which is an average of last 3 months blood glucose, 5.7 to 6.4, you are pre-diabetic. Above 6.5, you are diabetic. Now, type 1, type 2 is different. Type 1 is the insulin dependent diabetes that we see in children typically, but now increasingly in adults, it's been recognized. And type 2 is the one we talk about all the time, the one that is increasing. You say diabetes epidemic, diabetes capital, that is all type 2. The one that we get in, we used to get in our 40s and 50s, now we are getting in 20s and 30s also. So that is type 2 diabetes. So overweight type 2 diabetics, and most type 2 diabetics actually are overweight. So it's an absolute no-brainer for all the benefits that it gives. So that is number one. There, even with a BMI of 27, which is not very high. If you all measure a BMI, it's a challenge to keep it, 25 or less. So even with a BMI of 27, you're a candidate for this. 27 with comorbidities. First, of course, diabetes, but also if you're above a BMI of 27, along with other things, maybe you have a fatty liver, maybe you have hypertension, maybe you have cardiac disease, all those, the whole gamut of obesity related things. But then what about those who don't have anything? Who don't have no comorbidities, just wait. So there, the BMI recommended is 30, body mass index of 30 or more. These are recommendations, guidelines for rationalizing use of these drugs, particularly in insurance-driven environments. They are not necessarily completely biologically applicable across the world, and we'll have to come up with our own data on that. What should be the cutoffs for that? But this is what is currently recommended. If you don't have any comorbidity, then BMI above 30. If you have comorbidities, then BMI above 27, you could be a candidate, provided you have made substantial and sustained effort with diet and exercise. And these are really important, because please, I get patients every day who have done nothing and just, oh, now this drug is there, I don't have to do anything. I mean, that's human nature, like that. So I said, no, 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 you still have to do those things. So let's do a month of that, and then we'll try the drug, that kind of thing. So it's very important to understand that those are the basic, but otherwise these are the candidates.
So
As I see it going, it'll be used for just for fatty liver, just for sleep apnea, just for so many things. But at the moment, this is the indication.
So we do extensive work with the NHS, and you are right in pointing that systems like NHS and the US,
Yeah.
they are in fact recommending not only a BMI cut, but they are now saying that it has to be paired by
Yes.
advice on diet and nutrition,
Yes.
because they have seen people who don't follow the right diet have massive muscle loss and sarcopenia, and there are a lot of side effects related to especially muscle loss. And what are your thoughts around that, especially in the Indian context?
So I think that is a single point that bothers me. Now, we need to get this clear. It's important to understand, because everyone's going to ask this, and even I'm sure everyone's thinking about it. Muscle loss is a part of weight loss. So if you lose weight by going on a starvation diet, which people do, I've seen that all the time, and some fat diet or some starvation diet. If you lose weight at the other extreme using bariatric surgery, in all of those, roughly 20-30% of the weight goes from your muscle. So if you lose 15 kilograms, 3-4 kilograms will easily be muscle. That's huge. And the other downside here is you lose and it comes back, lose and it comes. Normal story, yo-yo effect in people with who are overweight or struggling. When you put it back on, it's mainly fat. So you end up with a muscle deficit every time. If you're not exercising, if you're not doing resistance training or strength training, I think this is important to understand that number one, muscle loss, when you lose weight fast, you lose some muscle. It is not an effect of the drug. These drugs are muscle friendly. Actually, I have to give an oration on this next month. These drugs are muscle and bone friendly. And the reason is that why people lose muscle is because, it goes out with the fat. Some muscle goes out, whatever the technique. But the Indian context that you said, which is very important, is the fact that Indians have low muscle mass to start out with. And in general, we tend to be a little sarcopenic, as we call it, a little low muscle mass, low protein intakes. Many of us are vegetarian, not paying good attention to our antioxidants and our vegetables, but not enough attention to protein in the diet. So that will be a challenge. So I'm insisting with partial success to my patients that you must join a program for which controls your protein intake and teaches you strength training to get your maximum benefit from these drugs. But there's another aspect to this. It's not just muscle loss. Even when you're trying to ultimately reduce the dose or bring to a maintenance dose, who are the people who can do it successfully? Are the ones who are following diet and exercise. Otherwise, if you're just dependent on the drug, if you go off again, the problem starts.
In fact, another thing which I was talking about is that this drug also has somewhat an effect on your urge to have alcohol, or your urge to even gamble, or they have kind of connected lower people going to casinos or even smoking. So does it truly have all kinds of effects around what your behavior is?
See, our body is controlled by our brain. Anything that acts on the brain could have potentially impact on various things. So the first thing is sweet cravings. And some people, they say, I saw this gentleman the other day who said, the problem is that I don't enjoy anything I've enjoyed for the last 30, 40 years. I just don't enjoy it. I'm okay. I'm happy, but I don't realize what happened. When the kachori comes, I say, no, I don't want it. His wife saying he doesn't like anything, whatever I made for him in the past, he just dislikes all of it. Now he wants very, very basic stuff. So I'm just saying that there can be, but this is not universal. I have patients who've lost 30 kilograms and it has made no difference to their sweet cravings. So it's not, so there's variability there, and we don't understand why. But yes, cravings for sweet and unhealthy food. Alcohol. Interesting observation. Studies are ongoing to determine in a controlled fashion, but it definitely, some people develop an aversion to alcohol. And one of my patients was very upset. He says, I'm good, my sugars are better, my weight is down, but the fun of my life, I mean, I can't have my drink. I don't feel like looking at it. I mean, what's the point, Doctor Saab? Sab bekar hai. Ye aap mujhe nahi karna. How can I not have my evening drink? So I mean, those are the things. So similarly for other behavioral things also, there's a lot of research going on based on the observations, like I'm describing in patients.
No, and I think another interesting aspect of GLP-1 especially is around gut health. I was told that because your food intake goes so low and there is excessive GLP-1 production in the system, it has a lot of impairment to your gut. So do you have any recommendation around how people can manage their gut?
So I think your question is very valid, and some research in this area is very exciting, but it really is in the realm of research right now. There is no doubt that GLP-1s impact gut health. There is no doubt that, I mean, one person develops constipation, the other develops diarrhea. I mean, obviously there is an impact on gut microbiota. We at the moment are advising very basic stuff, generic stuff, because we don't have the kind of scientific information to make specific recommendations. So we'll say have a lot of probiotics, have dahi, have enough fiber, because to avoid constipation. The key things in the diet when we treat someone to ensure gut health and good weight loss is make sure that you have enough fiber, make sure you have enough protein, and you have to make sure that you're not sort of completely shutting off your diet from protein. Yeah, that's a big challenge, because what happens is that uh, supposing our Indian intakes of protein, as I said, are very low. So supposing someone is taking the 40 grams of protein, and there'll be plenty who are taking 30, huh, among you and me also, if you check, and your diet becomes half of that. So 30 से 15 हो जाएगा protein, that's a problem, right? If 30 to 15 is a problem.
Normally, you need 1 gram per body kg, right? So, yeah.
Ensure that with a lower calorie intake is a challenge sometimes. So they need support. They may need support. So for gut health, fiber, probiotics, and adequate protein. I mean, those are the main things that we advise. And one important point is high fat diets like keto diets are a no-no, because high fat will produce a lot of reflux. Gut is slowed down. The gut the movement of the stomach is slower, so it'll all collect there, and fat will. So high fat diets, no. Some carbohydrate is allowed. I mean, it's very difficult to have that amount of protein with no carbohydrate. Some people go on very low. You cannot do very low carbohydrates. A moderate sort of this thing, which a nutritionist will explain to you, but ensuring adequate protein and fiber.
Does it work differently for men and women? Is there a difference which has happened?
You're asking all the research questions. This is what we keep debating. This is what we keep debating in our meetings. Some evidence, early evidence, suggests that it works better in women. But these are averages. Remember, these are statistics. And those subtle differences in real world, maybe this particular woman, it didn't work at all. I have a couple, and I'm not tired of giving that example. I have a couple where both wanted to lose weight, both are people with diabetes, both have been my patients for 20 years, and said, now the new medicine has come, now do something for us. Maybe we can lose weight. And we started both of them, same in incremental schedule and everything. The man lost 14 kg of all diabetes medicines except the GLP. The woman lost 3 kg with the same titration. Not
3 kgs.
not to say women lose less, but then we worked around that, and now we've given her a higher dose. Now she came day before yesterday, which is I am sharing this. She's now lost 9 kilograms. So there is some peace in their house. Otherwise, there was a lot of.
Yeah, 3 and 50. Oh, God. So tell me something, with women, there's also this whole discussion around thyroid. There was, some articles in the media which talked about potential thyroid issues, and especially in the case of women. And since you also work extensively on thyroid, have you seen any connection between this?
So the commonly seen thyroid issues are hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism to some extent. Hypo is much commoner. Absolutely no connection to GLP-1. No connection at all. The only connection, putative connection, more in animals, that has been seen is with a very rare kind of thyroid cancer. If someone has that cancer pre-existing, then one should not take it. Now, that is a rare cancer. We see thyroid cancers frequently, given my specialty. But that kind of cancer, I may be seeing once a year, twice a year. It's that rare. So, and you can do a blood test or a neck exam if you're worried about it. But the simple answer is if there is no family history of thyroid cancer, you can go ahead, don't worry about it.
So, there's also a feeling that these drugs were all designed and tested on Western bodies and Western people. We've just introduced them in India. So, are you aware that what kind of process was the government and the regulators and people like you followed to test it on the Indian population before it were introduced?
So, almost all large drug trials now, multinational drug trials, after the initial trial in the country of origin, include Indians and Chinese. In fact, China sometimes does its own. So, at least include Indians. So, every trial, almost every trial, not 100%, will have a proportion of Indians, 10%, something. They will be so Indians are exposed to the drug, number one. Number two, history tells us that all the drugs we are using, or most of the drugs, were first tried on Western Caucasians. And actually, our disease profile is not that different as we think. If you match nutrition for nutrition, then our disease profile is much more like Western Caucasians than like Eastern Japanese or Far East. So this fear is unfounded. It's not been unleashed. This has been a government decision for most drugs. If they are approved by US FDA and approved by EMA, European Medical Agency, then they can be launched. But the company is asked to give post-marketing data for any unusual side effects. I don't think that should be a fear. It's not those days. When we were young, then every drug was esoteric and we never had access and no one. But now we are part of not just me. I mean, I'm not so much of a trialist. I used to be in my younger days, but now so many colleagues are using these drugs in the trial stage itself. So I don't think that's a concern.
Also, is there any connection between GLP and its influence on fertility and menstrual health or PCOS? Because women have a lot more, hormone-related issues compared to men. So there is a concern that because they are dealing with so many things, GLP-1 can have several complications around it.
So GLP-1, one of the indications for using it is PCOS, polycystic ovaries, because these are conditions in girls and women driven by excess fat. So one of what do we tell our PCOS girls? Like 10 times a day. If try and lose weight, we'll give you some hormones, try and lose weight, maybe that'll do. Now we have something to offer. And clearly these drugs are being used for younger people also. PCOS fertility will only improve with these drugs. Of course, they cannot be used during pregnancy, and of course, they have to be stopped. Before you start trying for pregnancy. That's important. You don't land up in an awkward situation. Although anecdotal evidence where people conceived while on the drug, it is documented. Case reports have found no adverse impact, but those are very crude. Adverse impact may be seen 10 years later. We don't know. So, in one line, yes, they can be used safely for PCOS during menopause. Everything. The challenge for PCOS is that once you know they start planning a family, you have to stop the drug. And I'll tell you what is the clinical challenge, which may not necessarily occur to everybody immediately. Is okay, I see this girl, 28-year-old girl, with polycystic ovary, now married, wants to become pregnant, but she wants to first lose weight, and so we gave her GLP-1s for 2 years or whatever. Nice, she's lost weight, she's feeling good, everything is fine. Then we stop the GLP-1. Now, the moment we stop the GLP-1, the weight starts coming back, unless the girl is really, really good with her diet and lifestyle. Okay, now the problem is that you don't know when she's going to conceive. In these girls, you don't know. It's not that you stop the medicine today and they start planning tomorrow and day after tomorrow they conceive. It may take months and months. So during that month, the girl has to be without GLP-1, even low doses. So the weight goes on increasing. Now, then she becomes pregnant. God willing, she becomes pregnant, puts on more weight. Then she delivers the child. She's breastfeeding. Again, GLP-1 is out. So I don't know the answer to these things yet. I know that I can help women, girls conceive or get rid of their metabolic effects of PCOS. But during the life course, when will I restart and what will I do? Still an open question.
So people think that GLP-1 is a Rambana. I have it once, I've lost the weight and done. But what you are saying is that it can give you a temporary boost or get you a little ahead in the race, but then ultimately you can't be on GLP-1 on one forever. You have to finally fix your lifestyle.
So I think we should start by fixing the lifestyle. But the second point is partially true, Vishal. One is that, again, if it's a 60-year-old, 55-year-old with diabetes and overweight, and the GLP-1 is an anti-diabetic drug, it will continue for life. You may change the formulation, you may change the dose, but it's going to be there. It's a disease, you're treating it, well accepted. The question is about these 25, 20, 30-year-olds. What will we do? I mean, will they also be, forever on GLP-1? I really don't know. Americans say it often, oh, yeah, obesity is a disease like diabetes, like hypertension, lifelong medication. We don't know that yet. I'm not sure that I'll be able to confidently tell my 25-year-old patient while prescribing GLP-1 that ये तो life के लिए है. I think one has to be cautious and we'll learn more on the job.
No, and I think that's part of the problem, right? Because as you know, these are comparatively very expensive drugs, and while there is a class of people who can afford it for life, we also have a very big class of people who can't afford it. So there is an issue of accessibility, and now there are talks that in a few years these drugs will become more open and generic. Are you seeing these drugs to finally become a lot more accessible?
Yes, I'm sure. Like almost all drugs, we have to, this is my belief, people may agree or disagree, we have to allow the innovator to get their returns in the first few years. It is not necessary that every new drug is immediate. It would be ideal, but it's not possible for every new drug to be available immediately to everybody unless it's a life saving drug. Cancer, that's a different story. I'm talking of drugs like these. So, what I have seen with other anti-diet, SGLT2 inhibitors, fantastic drugs, too expensive, now dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So same thing I expect will happen. Patents will keep going off. People will keep trying to change and modify, and there'll be some legal tussles. But 100% patents will go off one by one, and these drugs will become more accessible. Whether going down the ladder, how low can we go? What segment of population? I don't know. But to the average urban middle class Indian, they will definitely become accessible, possibly as early as next year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
Also, there is a discussion around the off-label use of these drugs, right? A lot of people are just, like we say, buying it like candy, and the minute it become off-label, this could be massively abused. So, how do you think there can be a balance on this, right? Because this can also lead to a lot of challenges in the society.
Yes, I mean, you have to understand that the panwala can give us steroid here. Steroid pills. You go with the fever and headache, and my driver, I mean, they just go to the panwala, he gives them steroid and some combiflam or something. I'm just saying that this is the problem of regulation in this country. Now, the thing is that the drug has been identified as a prescription drug. Hopefully, doctors will stick to the guidelines and prescribe it to the correct people. Hopefully, chemists will follow the rules. I think government will have to be strict. Now, what my fear is that when this happens, when ease of access happens, my fear is the same as yours. But there's an additional fear. Okay, everyone starts taking it everywhere, and then newspapers will highlight some. This happened to that guy. He died. Something happened. Now the people then who genuinely need the drug become terrified of side effects. Now, no one can explain to them why did that guy take that drug? How did he take it? What dose? What condition did he have beforehand? We don't know that.
If you have a leaky gut, you should not be taking this, I was
So
told.
there's so many things. So the thing is that if your moment it gets used like that, side effects are highlighted, and the drug gets a bad name. So those who really deserve that drug become very reluctant to take it. So that's
Because one on the same connected point, right? A lot of people have IBS, IBD, all these gut related issues. And if you have a gut related issue, which also is very prevalent in the country, and they take GLP-1, what happens to those cases?
so it's not understood. It may worsen, it may improve. So you have to be under guidance of an expert. If your IBS is out of control, you can't have it, no question. But there are people with IBS who are completely all right now, but they get it once in a year, episodes, whatever. So there you can, under surveillance, you can, it's not taboo. You can have it, but it has to be under surveillance and under guidance. So all the inflammatory bowel disease is a relative contraindication, obviously, but not an absolute contraindication.
So right before GLP-1, what was in fashion was intermittent fasting. Everybody talked about IF. Before that, it was the keto diet. Before that, it was the Atkins diet. So there's always some new diet or fad which comes in the market. So do you see GLP-1 as another fad, and in a few years, do you think something else will come, or how does one view this?
No, I think GLP-1s are a game changer. I undoubtedly. I mean, whether Mounjaro and Ozempic will last, I don't know. I think they will, but the pipeline is so strong and the research is so strong and the evidence so exciting that if they can gradually reduce the side effects and make it like, for example, there is a once a month preparation that's already under trial. So there are oral preparations that are as effective as these already under trial. So there are lots of things that are going to happen in this field. I do not think these drugs are a fad.
And are there any blind spots? Because sometimes people feel that this all happened, this research, the release happened close to COVID. When all the healthcare systems had their guards fully focused on COVID, and somehow we have we all view a lot of the companies with the skepticism that profits are driving this, and 5 साल बाद पता चलेगा, 10 साल बाद पता चलेगा क्या हो रहा है. There is a lot of such discussion. So are you concerned about any blind spots here?
I mean, I think the number of studies, the sheer volume of studies, and the sheer spread of studies across the world makes it highly unlikely. I can never rule it out, no one can, but it's highly unlikely. So I mean, one has to go by probability. The probability of having any such thing is very, very low. I don't think they can hide data. Meta-analysis, Europe, America, not even the same company, independent studies done by scientists, meta-analysis done by leading workers, and the original discoveries by Daniel Drucker, Martin Shop, others. I mean, they're unbelievable scientists. They're not industry people. So I don't think that the discovery can be challenged. I don't think the side effects at the moment anything is hidden. But if new ones emerge, then I mean, it seems very unlikely, but no one can rule it out.
See, because the promise of 15% body weight is so compelling for a lot of people that they tend to use it and then stop it, and then again use it and stop it. So is there any study around this where people can just go off and on and off and on it, and then in the middle during Diwali and holidays continue to binge?
Well, studies will never recommend that. Studies would also always say you follow the guidance, you follow this. Obviously, but people do these things. I mean, this happened in the past. But the thing is that there is a huge variety of studies that are ongoing. So, for example, some patients who started using it for maintenance every 15 days, they still were able to maintain their weight. So I think these permutations and combinations will happen, and they will particularly happen in this part of the world. We are very clever at trying these kind of little tweaks here and there. I think there will be lots of things here. Like we are following the fixed protocol, but I'm already seeing there are subtle variations that we can do, which might, like people ask about microdosing. for example? That's a most common question. At the moment, I say no, not because I think it'll harm you, but because I'm not sure that the beneficial effects that we are talking about of heart, kidney, and all will happen with macrodosing. But I'm certain at some point, fairly certain, that all these dose combinations and all will be tested. They already are actually. And then we'll have many more options within the same drugs than following just the set trial protocol. So there will be, even for these two major drugs, there'll be a lot of protocol changes and dose changes that will happen. But I do not recommend that people do it on their own. I really don't recommend, because then you find a side effect. Then you say, the drug did this to me, or this happened, and you actually didn't follow anything. So
So
I think it's important that you do it under expert medical supervision.
So let's say somebody comes to you who is, let's say, overweight, maybe borderline pre-diabetic, diabetic. Do you, like, the first thing you do is start GLP-1? And what is the first course? When do you say that I've tried everything and now I should go to GLP? Because right now a lot of people are saying, wow, I don't need to do anything. I'll directly go to GLP. Is there some step or some process before you go to GLP?
I think if you come with mild diabetes and pre-diabetes and little overweight, it depends on the extent of weight. Someone comes with a BMI of 37, I'll say just start the medicine. You know, but many patients come in the zone of BMIs of 27, 28. You say give it a shot first. I mean, those drugs are not going away anywhere. Let's see if we can do it without the drug. And there are significant number of people in that range who will succeed. And if they do fail and they don't succeed, I mean, or it relapses, then we can always start GLP-1. So for a certain category of patient, yes, I would at the first instance say I think you should take it. Even there, I always give them a month or so to think over it. I never say, because if person doesn't want GLP-1 and he comes for just some advice, "Ye to aise injection bata diya," they'll never take it. They'll go off it forever. You say this is an option. We can think about it. Let's give it a shot, and then otherwise we'll move to this option. It's a good
So
option.
out of most of the, let's say, 100 people who you have prescribed the drug, how many of them said that I can't do this and have left the program midway?
So, if you exclude logistics, because before this availability was an issue, cost was an issue, exorbitant before they were formally launched. If you exclude that, then about 10 to 15%.
So for 15% people, these drugs don't work. Is that
Well,
fair to say?
one is yes, they don't work for some, or they work minimally, or the side effects are too much. They can't they can't handle it. So we just stop it. So, an interesting observation I have in this regard, and human mind, what we learn in medicine is more about human mind than our own field. Is that, people come to me saying that they have a little bit of gastritis, they can't take metformin. They have a little bit of swelling, they can't take amlodipine. ये तो ले ही नहीं, ये तो दवाई का साइड इफेक्ट है, I can't take it. This is the medicine side effect. Why I don't like these medicine. But when it comes to GLP-1, people tolerate anything. I said, you shouldn't be doing this. You're going to the loo 8 times a day. You're throwing up. You're missing work also sometimes because of this. He said, नहीं वो हम work from home कर लेंगे. Weight मेरा बहुत कम हुआ डॉक्टर साहब. I have lost 7 kilograms. I have lost 8 kilograms. So clearly, in the human mind, weight for cosmetic reasons is a far greater driving force than health. And anyone who doubts that statement can come like a fly on the wall in my OPD and see what people are telling me all day. And I said, no, I think you should go slow. I don't want you to lose so fast. Let's reduce the dose. No, 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 no. Don't do it. I said, but you yourself said you're feeling so sick. No, 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 but I don't want to discontinue. But overall, still 10-15% will be.
So, in the promise of fast, effortless results and change, which are instant, right? Get an injection and boom, in 6 months, you lose 10, 15 kgs. Are we building a generation which is kind of becoming more lazy and is just getting more dependent on medicine rather than doing any effort?
That's a risk. I mean, that's true. That's true for everything. That's true for your started with the TV remote. I mean, for everything, we know that you're very right. I mean, that is a concern. And I think it will require a lot of effort, persistent effort, sustained effort on behalf of medical professionals and society to educate people about these molecules and to make sure they're used in the right way so that our younger generation doesn't just, you know, always get hooked onto it. And also, already, I mean, we get these requests all the time. Shadi hai, you know, I'm getting married in 2 months. My daughter's getting married. Can I lose weight? I said, but you're, you know, you're 60 kilo. You're okay. I mean, your BMI is 24, whatever. I want to fit into my college clothes. So I said, it's not okay to start a medicine for that. So that kind of use, I'm saying no, but I'm sure there are many who would just either go with the flow or patients who would just manage it without any prescription. So that will be a challenge.
Yeah, they say, right, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So that is really what it is, right? Everybody wants to get look the best, but nobody wants to put in the effort. And that's where the promise of GLP-1 comes. I think partly there is so much interest in this topic and worldwide. I mean, the companies who have made this have made billions
Billions.
for themselves. And I think while definitely there are some challenges, I think on an overall basis, I think this is also working towards elongation of life, because chronic disease was really one of the key conditions of mortality. And if somehow using GLP-1 you can manage chronic conditions, that can have an overall impact on lifespan, health span.
That's what people are anticipating. That's what, if things go right, as I said again, if things continue to go in this direction, it definitely could have an impact on longevity also. It's because your most chronic diseases are arising from that. And there are independent actions now of GLP-1 on inflammation, independent of their effects on fat. There's a remarkable ongoing study on Alzheimer's. You know, I'm not if you're able to treat Alzheimer's or produce it. I mean, those are huge things.
Yeah.
So yes, potentially yes.
So Dr. Ambrish, recently, as you know, the whole COVID vaccine has got into a lot of controversy around the testing and so on and across the world. And here we have you, one of the most respected and distinguished doctors in the country, purely endorsing something like GLP-1. What gives you the confidence to be backing it so much?
The data. I mean, it's not when the first study came out, we were all very skeptical. Like, क्या है, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? You know, that kind of thing. But you look at the data closely, you talk about it, you discuss it, you present it in different meetings. Others presented, you cross-question it. And you're talking of New England Journal of Medicine, you're talking of Lancet, you're talking of, you know, those kind of journals. And then you have build your own experience. So the concept and the data is very solid. So as I said, the thing that will weigh them down is if people lose too much muscle and they're not careful about that. If they use it intermittently without supervision, those who are not candidates use it. So those things will create trouble. And of course, as I'll never tired of saying, if post-marketing surveillance throws up some unexpected side effect, which is unlikely, but we don't know. Like one thing that has been discussed, and before someone asks, I'll cover that, is eye-related issues. So what has been shown, whenever you control sugar very rapidly, then there can be an increase in retinopathy, temporary, but it can be. So वो तो मालूम है insulin से भी it happens, you know, with insulin also. But there are other things they are finding with optic nerve and all. Maybe 1 in 10,000, you know, but for the normal population is zero point 0.2 in 10,000. So there are, but this is not in longitudinal data. This is a different kinds of studies which I can't explain. But so they are observational studies, but they are they have another study will show there's no effect on optic nerve. One study will show no, there is slightly increased risk when you use for so many years. So those little things, if any of them proves to be correct and in a larger number of people, then of course there will be a deterrent. Otherwise, no.
I must again thank you, Dr. Ambrish. I think we have heard about GLP-1s from a lot of Western scientists, from celebrities talking about it, and so many people on Instagram and WhatsApp. But hearing you and your wholehearted endorsement on the science backed by data gives me and everybody listening here the confidence that these drugs are ready and they are ready to be used by Indians who are having all these major health challenges. I'm also excited that you also specifically mentioned that this is not a ramban. You
Yes.
have to combine this with a lifestyle modification and focus on probably weaning off these drugs because you possibly don't want to be on this for life. You also mentioned about especially women. Women have a lot more challenges with thyroid, PCOS, and it is absolutely safe for them because there was this whole myth around it. And of course, at the end, you specifically, and again, thanks for giving the clarity that this has been extensively tested even on Indians. Because while there is one segment who's running to buy this drug, there are a lot of people who are scared with half information. So, first of all, I would urge everybody out here to get doctors the book. We'll put the link here. But more importantly, I want to thank you once again for spending your valuable time with the Edge members and talking about such an important topic with such kindness and empathy. The reason, by the way, I mentioned empathy is because our next session, which is on 31st, is by a leader who talks about empathy. Their entire talk, their topic is empathy. We have an empathy expert, Mimi Nicklin, who's going to join us next week on 31st at 7 p.m. at Edge. So I think there is no better way to have the next session on empathy after this. But once again, thanks a lot. And we are looking forward to engaging with you as we get more questions. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We thoroughly enjoyed your very learned, incisive questioning. And uh, since we are ending on empathy, the fact is that in my old fashioned way, I do not think you can be a good physician or a good doctor unless empathy is inbuilt into you. You have to have, everything that we are doing, whether it's these drugs or whether it's this, is based on what is good for my patient. And if that mantra remains, everything will fall in place.
Thank you again, Doctor. Thanks a lot.